Okay, so this is actually going to serve as the first part of a Path of Exile run on a Facebreaker build. Sadly, the original version of this, when I tried to record this, I screwed one thing up, which is I was monitoring my mic audio, but forgot to not have it muted in the video. So you can hear in the original version of this video all the game sounds, but you couldn't hear me. So this is basically going to be how I start off a Facebreaker build, uh, sort of with my homebrew Facebreaker build. I've already got the Facebreaker equipment, sort of minimum equipment, and I'm basically just going to sort of speed run, casually speed run in the way that I do. Bit of the first act here in preparation to working towards using Facebreaker, which is basically swapping over to ground slam. For the first little bit here, we're going to be on heavy blow, just because this is basically the tutorial beach. And to be fair, Hillock is pretty easy to actually take down with heavy blow, so there's no reason to use auto attack at heavy blow. This was also sort of a test video for getting the audio working, so sadly the audio was, well, if I knew exactly what I was doing, it was working at this point, but the audio wasn't actually being recorded, or well, I believe technically it's muted, which doesn't do you any good. So I'm doing sort of an after-action report here as we watch through it. This section isn't that long. It's only about 20 minutes, and it's basically just me running around with a stick, first off using heavy blow and then swapping over to ground slam, because I have a valid ground slam in the storage. So as soon as we get past Hillock here, I will debate what equipment I'm going to grab, and I might try skipping through that a little bit, because honestly, in the moment that made sense, because I was giving a little bit more of an overview of why I was picking what I was picking, but in hindsight, that's, at least as an after-action report, isn't all that important. I basically just, most of what I have is a bunch of uniques in a unique tab, so I'm basically quickly skimming through it all and figuring out what the uniques I will go with would reasonably be. And as you can see here, you basically, with Hillock, you just sort of spin around here with him in counterclockwise. And every time he takes a swing, you take a swing, but because you're going counterclockwise, he misses and you don't. And so this is where I come into here, and at this point I'm debating, oh, do I want to go life or do I want to go physical damage? And at first I'm like, oh yeah, we'll go life, and then I'm like, wait, I really probably don't need life. Let's do a bunch of phys damage, which is what we end up doing. In the long run, we'll potentially actually do both, because Facebreaker builds, one of the big advantages of Facebreaker builds is you don't have to worry about your weapon. But the drawback is you don't have a weapon to worry about, so you very rapidly get into a state where you're relying on your passive tree or you're relying on other equipment to give you damage. Because the Facebreaker is probably better than like half the weapons in the game, but it's not necessarily endgame viable purely by itself, so you gotta figure out a way to get more damage. So I've already swapped over to Ground Slime here. I'm trying to remember what equipment I have where. And when that equipment comes online. So I may try scrolling through this quicker once we're going here. So basically, the first thing I'm going through is I'm trying to figure out, okay, do I have any boots, and when would those boots come online and make sense? And I think I basically determined something like it's the gold series is what I'm going with. Gold rim, gold boots. So there's gold rim, which I think is what I end up grabbing. But obviously that doesn't actually come online until 34. So that's actually going to spend all of this video in my inventory, all of the next video in my inventory, because I'm a couple videos ahead because I have to come back and give this after action report. And then I think even in the third one, which is where I finish up Act 2, it won't have actually been put on. In fact, actually, I think I find a rare I put on in the third video for boots to temporarily stay until I get those boots on. Here, obviously, I'm trying to find Facebreaker. Find the Facebreaker. Facebreaker comes on fairly early. It comes on 16. So it won't be this video, but it'll be the next video where you actually see me using Facebreaker. Gold Rim is immediately available, so Gold Rim goes on. I think for the amulet, I end up grabbing the one for Purity of the Elements. In here, we're looking through all the body armor. Maybe skip ahead a little bit because I end up deciding the body armor isn't worth grabbing any of them. Because all the ones that would be worth grabbing are simply just too high level. There's a decent possibility that I'll find better armor. Or I should find better armor because I'm going to end up in a situation where they're not going to hang around that long. End up grabbing a shield in here. I think there's one that I actually have the minimum level within Act 1 to use that I decide on. But for a while, I think I was thinking the shield wall one. And then I changed my mind to the one I finally ended up going with. Yeah, that one. Titus Span there was originally, or not Titus, Troll Meter. Troll Timber Spire is what I ended up sticking in the inventory first, and then I changed my mind and go to a different one. So we'll skip ahead a little bit to that. So that's it going in the inventory. And let me skip back so you can see the stats of what I actually ended up going with. A little bit further back. Oop, why is that muted? What did I screw up? Screwed something up. It's paused right now. Okay, why is it still muted? Let me see if I can figure out what went wrong. That's not muted. I'm having difficulties. Okay, got the sound going again. But yeah, so I was originally going to go with that tower shield. I then ended up deciding to change which shield. Ends up being this buckler, the Crest of Verandus up here. Mainly for the lightning resistance and health. So I end up having a lot of health for all Act 1, Act 2. Which means as long as I'm being careful, I probably won't die anytime in Act 1 and Act 2, which is what I think ends up happening, where I basically don't die. We're going through on the rings here. I do decide to grab one of the rings, I think. That one in the end I think I get grabbed. And then I think later I go ahead and grab and one of the rare rings I have in a different tab. So let me skip ahead. Here I go with the amulet that has Purity of the Elements on it and a bunch of base resists. Which for sort of these early level grinding is really good for the resists. It doesn't really hold up late game, but early game it's really good. So seeing as I'm going through here, I think in the end it's not that one I picked, right? So I'm sort of contemplating choices and going through here. And I end up, I think it's the tier of Purity I go with. Well, skip, oops. Can I skip to when I'm actually having, yeah, so you can see there. It's got level 10 Purity elements, got some all-out attribute, some life, and some resist, I think, as well. This is when I come for that rare ring. Do have a rare ring. Don't decide on that one. I think it's the iron ring to the right there that I take. Yeah. It's got 15 all, which is going to be really nice when I get to that, but obviously I don't get to that for a while. Let's try to skip ahead. Okay, skipped a little farther ahead, but now we're actually going again in Act 1. I've stopped futzing around with inventory. In this case, I've realized, oh, I've got Val Grand Slam. I need to put the Val on the QWERTY portion of the keyboard because it's not really good for right click, whereas normal Grand Slam is the good right click. And this is basically the skills I run. Well, actually, in this case, I think this is the skills I run all the way into the beginning of Act 3. I'm a little bit smarter before I start Act 3. I will hopefully have gone and picked up a gap closer, like Dash or Flame Dash, before we actually start Act 3. Because that ends up becoming, not necessarily a problem, but sort of an annoyance later on. Because not having a gap closer It just makes it inconvenient for getting across things like cliffs and up and down cliffs and stuff like that. So this first video is going to be fairly short. This was really a test video to make sure the audio is working. So I basically run until we get into the first underwater cave section, which I suppose technically isn't underwater, but it's the flooded cave section, which obviously doesn't take very long from this point. If anything, probably on this run, which is why it's not a real speed run, is I'm spending way too much time killing things. Had a little bit of, actually, Path of Exile lag there, where you sort of saw me teleport from one side of the drown to the other side, where the lockstep decided, oh, you'd been walking, so you're now on the other side of that zombie, even though you'd actually stopped walking a couple seconds on this side of it, but that wasn't, other than making a comment of it in the moment, that wasn't that big of a deal, as you can see. And again, this is, at this point, we're basically got 2 sticks out and using it for the attack speed, because these basic sticks basically don't have any special damage. We're basically just ground slamming, and as long as you're careful, ground slam is a decent leveling skill. The attack speed here feels nice. When I go actually start to swap into the Facebreaker stuff, the loss of the attack speed is a bit disappointing, but that won't happen until the next video. In the next video, I actually have audio, so it won't be an after action for the next one. It will be after action for this one, and I think the third video I screwed up at the very beginning, where I had live streamed and had muted at the end of the live stream. I didn't catch that at the beginning of that recording, so you're gonna have to have one version of me sort of doing an audio over the top of it again for that one as well. But that's about a video and a half from now. So if you're watching these in order, that'll be like an hour from now. Even though this video is pretty short, the second video was of decent length. I basically ran all of the rest of Act 1 after this video. Because the goal was to get to actually getting to play a little bit with Facebreaker, so I basically did one zone with Facebreaker in the next video. Which plays pretty similar to here with the double sticks. It's just instead of hitting the ground with a stick, you're hitting the ground with your fist. And because of how Facebreaker works, it's initially a pretty strong power increase. And here, we're basically just doing circles around the guy until we get the medical chest out of him. Here, if you were trying to speedrun, you'd probably teleport out to go collect your Quicksilver, or log off to go collect your Quicksilver, because you want to go back to town to pick the Quicksilver. Here, again, this is not league start, so you're not necessarily worried about being that time conservative. And I don't necessarily need that Quicksilver right away. I end up going back to town after this zone, and that's when I go ahead and grab that Quicksilver. And I think for all of the next video, technically running 2 Quicksilvers and 1 mana, which ends up being okay. It's maybe a bit tight. Had I been running, actually paying attention and getting armor, so this build was tankier, then it probably would have made sense to drop the health points into the mana so I could be a little bit faster. But there definitely were scenarios where I was suffering from not having sustainment with the mana. Because this, unlike more mana heavy builds, doesn't have a lot of regen. And in this zone, you basically got to go open up the 3 nests, get the rock out of each nest, and that'll open the submerged passage. So here you're just sort of seeing me kill things as I go along the beach. Usually the trick is if you tab, you can either see, as you can see in the map now, because I'm close enough without it being tabbed, you can see where the nests will be sort of through the fog of war. The other alternative is if you run along the beach, eventually you'll see the river, where the river hits the sea, and you can follow the river back up to the nests, which you can sort of see in this video as I'm doing sort of a mix of the two, where I'm running along the coast until I either see the exclamation point indicating that the nests are just inland, or until I see the river and I can follow the river in. And again, this is a reasonably tanky build, and I do technically have a stun here, right? So if I'm really screwing up, I can drop the Val Grand Slam, which is usually a fairly reliable stun, which is what you can see there. It basically stuns 2 of the 3 magics. And this is even before I got Facebreaker or other things that are going to raise stun probability. I think I'll probably take this, as I usually do, Grand Slam builds into a stun-heavy territory where I can get endurance charges on stun. So I can do endurance charge stacking. That's not the exit, so I probably should have actually noticed that wasn't the exit sooner. But that's what I'm looking for now, is the exit. So now we can see the exclamation point for the exit out in the Fog of War. So we'll be quickly ending this video, because this video is pretty much just until we get there. Because we'll basically go back to town and that'll be the end of the video. Right now I'm sort of struggling. As you can see, I talked about earlier, the one thing in this build sort of struggles early on with is mana sustain. Melee can be in a scenario where you use up a lot of mana per hit. Slotting in some of the Quicksilver Flask and some of the unique equipment I covered earlier. So yeah, this is basically the first part. I decided very rapidly early on that turning on Purity of Elements here is a thing I could do, but I'm already struggling with mana, so it's not a rush. So I was going to travel back to town, but I ended up traveling first to my hideout. But basically I'm going to travel back to town and turn in the quest to get the second Quicksilver. I might even immediately just slot the second Quicksilver in. I'm not sure if I do that immediately or not. Yeah, this is pretty much the end of the video. I'm going through trying to decide if I want any of those. I'm not sure if I even take any of them. If I do take one of them, and I actually promptly sell it because I've decided I don't need it and it was in my way. And yeah, I swap over into the Quicksilver. So this is pretty much the end of the video. There should be a second part with my live audio coming up from when I continue this. Basically at this point I go ahead and take a short break to check to see if I got the audio working, and the answer was the game audio is working, but the mic audio from live wasn't. So I had to change some settings, and that was fixed for the second recording, which was basically the rest of part 1 and a little bit of part 2, so I got to play around with Facebreaker that night before I swapped over to a different game. So this is where I'll stop the recording, and this will get uploaded to YouTube as a part 1 for leveling a Facebreaker. Okay, we'll see you in part 2.
We haven't got anything to disenchant.
Later.